Hello everyone, this is Rona Palmer from eMain Enterprises. I apologize we had a few minutes delay in starting today's webinar, but I appreciate everybody joining us today for this month's Best Practices webinar. And I have with me today Fraser Allport, who's the CEO of Energy, Water, and Taxes. And he's going to be presenting today's topic, Reducing Energy and Water Bills. And thanks for joining us today, Fraser. I'm glad you could put this
You're
together.
welcome. Thank you for the invitation, Ron.
Oh, my pleasure. And Fraser, a little background on Fraser. As I mentioned, he is the CEO of Energy, Water, and Taxes, which is a consulting firm out of Miami that helps both plants as well as facility and property managers save money on energy, water, and tax bills. And he is also licensed by Florida's Department of Business and Professional Regulation Department to provide continuing education in energy, water efficiency, and operational excellence. And you know, while we have a pretty large group today, Fraser, and while people are logging in, can you just take a moment and share with the audience today? I know you had originally reached out to eMain about putting on this topic several months ago, and maybe you can tell us a little bit about what inspired you to come to us and want to share this story with our audience today.
Well, on a very tactical level, when it comes to CMMS, none of this high-tech green hardware, we'll call it, whether it's new HVAC or solar or whatever you want to do on your property with 21st century hardware, none of it will work properly unless it's smart. It needs to be controlled by software. And so whatever you're doing for operational excellence, whatever you're looking at in terms of equipment, if you're not mirroring it with the software, it's not going to work properly in the 21st century. You see it a lot with LED lighting. People will buy LED lighting fixtures, and they won't have software that's compatible. So they can't really run the lights properly. They can't do it virtual. They can't get the lights to be compatible with other systems in the building. So one of the things that I always stress to people is whatever hardware you're looking at, you want that to be smart. It needs to have a brain to properly run, manage, monitor, and maintain the hardware. So I ran across an industrial facility that had desires to upgrade the whole supply chain on operational excellence regarding the hardware, but they really had a blind spot on the software. And I said, well, do you have a CMMS system? And they said, no. And I said, well, you're really not going to get 100% operational efficiency unless you have software talking to the hardware. And that's what this is all about. All right, hi, everyone. Thank you for joining today. This is normally a 2 to 4 hour continuing education course, and I'm happy to provide that for people if they want to follow up or get a PDF, but what I'm going to try and do today is really skim through the clip notes here. So we're trying to take 2 to 4 hours and put it into 30 minutes, so we're going to move pretty quickly, but again, all this material is available through me or Rona with a phone call and an email. Okay, the first slide really says it all. You know, the terms green and sustainability are tossed around a lot, and they're not even well defined, and people use them as shorthand. And yes, this is about energy and water efficiency, but it's really about total workplace management, total quality control. You could call it the second Deming revolution in efficiency. The 21st century hardware and software out there is so efficient, such an upgrade to your facility, that it can be looked at systemically from top to bottom in your building, not just energy and water savings. So this is really about transcending green and sustainability. I know some people sometimes roll their eyes and say, oh, I'm going to get a lecture. No, this is about efficiencies and productivity driving profitability. It's that simple. You'll see the next sentence is, I don't touch politics on this. This is about economics. I don't go anywhere near the political aspects of green or climate change. This is strictly about math, money, saving money in your balance sheet, your profitability, your productivity. My definition of green or sustainability or total workplace management, total efficiency, total quality control, call it what you like, is to use less and produce more. I mean, that's going to be a working and market-driven, profitable definition of green in your facility, in the real world. And your property's hardware and software, the supply chain that deliver efficiency and excellence, obviously. So we need to get to the bottom here of this slide that says master logistics. Get your hardware and software to perform at 100%. And that's really what this is all about at the end of the day. Get your hardware and software to perform at 100%. Okay, let me hit my little scroll bar here. And I'm not scrolling down to the next slide. There it is. Okay. There are three large variable costs that most facilities, in my experience, in 30 years in business, overpay. Energy, water, and tax bills. Again, I would stress, these are variable expenses. They're not fixed. These are not envelopes you open up and you just pay the bill. Maybe you did 20, 30 years ago. People just paid their energy and water bills, but not anymore. You can reduce these expenses by being proactive about them. And that's combining the 21st century green technologies, the hardware and software, with various tax incentives. And tax incentives are simply a subsidy. It means that somebody, the utility company, the state, the federal government, somebody is helping to pay for it. So one of the things we focus on with taxes is getting every possible incentive because it reduced the buyer's out-of-pocket costs. And this is what this is all about. We're reducing operations and maintenance. If you're a facility, a property, a plant manager, when this is all said and done, this is the bottom line. We're reducing O&M. It's about operational excellence, which will also elevate the reputation and branding of your, by the way, PPF is property, plant, facility. But I'll show you at the end of this conversation that after somebody has implemented these kinds of efficiencies in their property, they're very wise to let the public know. There's a lot of goodwill, a lot of PR, a lot of branding, and a lot of enhanced revenue from letting your clientele know, whoever it may be, that you've done these things in your facility. I mean, the numbers out there are astounding as to how the public perceives green companies versus, quote, polluters. Total quality control yields higher productivity, occupancy, lease rates, market value. You run your property like a Swiss watch, and you're going to have enhanced profits, productivity, or better occupancy rates, lease rates, better marketability. So if you look at the bottom, it says increase the asset yield, net operating income of your property through operational excellence and total quality control. That's what this whole presentation is really all about. Today's goals. We're going to look at reducing your energy, water, and tax bills. The tax bills will be primarily the domain of the chief financial officer, but there are so many tax incentives from, again, state, federal, local, municipals, utility companies, that it would be malfeasance on the part of a consultant like myself to not factor in tax savings, because they are going to be substantial sometimes. Maybe 20, 30% of the project will be funded. We did a LED lighting project with a casino out in the Pacific Northwest, and the utility company, very progressive out there, picked up half the bill, literally paid for 50% of the lighting, 50%. And of course, if someone's picking up part of your bill, you're going to have a much faster payback, much better ROI. Again, increasing efficiencies are not only operational but cultural. We'll talk about how to involve the C-level executives so that this is not kind of a random hit or miss one-off. You do a little bit here and there a la carte. This is really a systemic, cultural, top-down approach that you're going to wring out all the efficiencies in your property if you really regard this as a cultural shift as well as operational. Future-proofing. Green is becoming code increasingly. It's not my opinion. You can look to New York and California as the handwriting on the wall, but I would say to people very simply to become green before green becomes code. Be proactive on doing these things, because one of these days, these things that we're talking about today will not be optional. And there's lots of examples I could delve into in New York, California, even Florida. One of the reasons why is that it's a real moneymaker for the local municipalities to affect some kind of surcharge, penalty, whatever it might be if you're not efficient. Take a look around. Green is becoming code. You want to be ahead of the curve, not behind it. Next sentence is green and sustainability. And again, I'm using those terms loosely for energy and water efficiency, reducing O&M. People think green costs. That's a myth we're going to dispel in a moment. You can actually turn it around the other way. Sustainability, green, whatever you call it, should be a profit center, not a cost item. That's how we do it with our clients, where people are making money from these enhancements, not losing money. The business imperative. Again, these are variable expenses that I'm sometimes just astounded, respectfully, when people say, well, that's the bill. Most bills in this country, most facilities on energy and water are probably 10 to 30% overpaid. That's probably the norm that we see consistently from virtually any property as to what you can obtain in savings. 10 to 30%, that's not a small number when you think of your energy and water bills, if they're proactively managed. They're not fixed expenses. You need an action plan, whether it's top-down or bottom-up, whoever starts this. Ultimately, again, I keep coming back to the fact that it can't be one person doing just one little thing. It really has to be that facility or that corporation saying, we're going to embrace this as a cultural change. We're going to do it systemically throughout the entire facility. The hardest part of any project is to start. So we're going to talk about how you start this process. As I said, it's normally a 2 to 4 hour CE course. You're welcome to get that material from us. And again, recapping, it's about cost reduction, increased efficiencies. It's about future-proofing your property. And that's not about green or sustainability. Those are called capital improvements that keep you competitive in the marketplace. It's going to be very difficult to stay competitive in your property in the 21st century if you're running a brown facility when everybody else is a green facility. How to reduce utility and tax bills for your planned property facility. Again, we're going to touch on all three of those, including the taxes. If you're a facility manager, rest assured the CFO will be handling the tax component. I'm going to give you an action plan, which is probably the biggest thing that I try and finish with, because I've been to a million seminars and webinars in my life as well, and it's tough when you get a great topic and a lot of good information and then they don't tell you how to implement it the next day at your desk. We're going to leave where you've got very specific things you can do to get the ball rolling. The last comment there, mandate performance. One of the reasons people sometimes lose money on these projects is because they don't implement results-based projects. And what I mean by results-based is you know a priori going in ahead of time, if you work with the right people, exactly what your savings will be. We provide the forensics. We know the payback, the ROI. We know the square footage savings. We know the demand. We know everything so that you can give clients a guarantee that there will be savings. So this is not, gee, I hope this stuff works. If you mandate performance, if you demand forensics, and you demand warranty guarantees, you'll get them. They're out there from the right people. And then you know going in that, okay, on this particular project, I know ahead of time, I've been guaranteed and shown in math that I'm going to reduce my energy bill by X%. If you can't get that math from somebody, if you can't get the forensics, the ROI, the return on investment, the actual savings percentage, if you can't get the payback period, the length of time, if you can't get all the numbers to fit, don't do it. And that's our business model. If the numbers don't work, it's going to be a loser. Don't do it. For instance, solar, an 8 to 10 year payback. I'm not going to recommend that to clients. Our payback is a 2 to 4 year model. Something falls outside that, we don't do it. If you do the same thing, if you establish parameters and mandate performance, you'll never have a losing project. This is very important, the 5 myths of going green. I put this in here and I spoke with Ron and I said, no one's going to have really a long-term open mind to all of this unless we debunk some of the myths that are out there in the marketplace. I've written an article on this. This is the shorthand version. Anybody who wants to obtain the full article, you'll see my email is right up there, info@fraserallport.com. Just shoot me an email, please, and say, send me 5 myths. Number 1, and I wrote this because I consistently run across these myths, and they have to be debunked and dispelled so that people can start with a clean slate. The first myth is that green is politically driven. It is for some people, but not for us. This is all about economics. This is all about reducing O&M and saving money. And again, all of the myriad of benefits that then follow from a very well-run, efficient plant. And everybody knows the benefits. Productivity soars. Everything is improved when you run your facility at peak performance. That's what it is to me. That's not green being polar bear and climate. I love all that stuff, but that's not what we're talking about today. Number 2 is that green costs a big upfront outlay of capital. I see this all the time, and it's probably the number 1 reason people don't start. And that's true if you do green incorrectly, if you do projects incorrectly, if you don't square the math up and get people to really box that math in and then guarantee it. We have a very simple formula when it's all said and done. If you can't finance the project where the savings exceed the finance, don't do it. So in my world, I want a 2 to 4 year payback, nothing more than 4, preferably less than 2. It's hard to always get there, but somewhere between 2, 3, 4 years at the most. We have projects we've done which are less than 2 years. Secondly, you want to have an ROI that's at least double digit. We're not doing this for the sake of saving you 2%. We want at least a 10% savings in that particular bill. Thirdly, we want tax incentives. We want to make sure that our client is getting some kind of subsidy or somebody else is pitching in to help pay for the project. And lastly, and this is where you know you've reached nirvana, if you can square up the math with the consultant you're working with, if you can get to a spot where the quantifiable, verifiable savings in writing, guaranteed, are $1 a month, let's say, and your finance costs, which we also help arrange for clients. If the financing is less than $1, then at the end of the day, the last sentence on the slide, you've actually got a project that generates positive cash flow from day one. Got a project where your savings are $1, verified, guaranteed. Your finance cost is, let's say, 60 cents, and you're net making money from day one. Those are the projects, the only projects that make sense. Number 3, green curbs growth because it costs too much and constrains the markets. This speaks for itself. I don't believe that. This is about 21st century technology doing exactly the opposite, actually, dramatically enhancing and improving your property. If you own a property or you run a property or somehow you're involved in a property and that property is not being upgraded for the 21st century, it is not going to be competitive, whether it's a factory, whether it's a high-rise. Number 4, green is an expensive luxury item, costing more than it saves. That's less and less true. 5, 7, 10 years ago, if you compared let's say a low-flow toilet to a regular toilet, the difference might have been 100%. There are many technologies now, 21st century, quote, green technologies, that are not only coming down the cost curve very rapidly, like solar, which has probably come down in price from $12 a watt to $2 a watt in 3 years. It's about an 80% decrease in the cost. All of these, quote, green technologies are moving down the cost curve very rapidly. If you can't find something that fits the parameters of this business model where you want to do a short payback, don't do it. Look for another technology. That's our job, is to look for the things that make sense. And many times what you're finding is that some of these 21st century technologies, especially in weatherization, building envelope, HVAC, indoor air quality, the green technologies are actually now cheaper. It would be cheaper for me to buy a fuel injection car today than to go back and try and retrofit it for a carburetor. So this myth that green costs, no. And again, if you do look at something that's a budget buster, or as I keep mentioning, the model where it's not a profitable project from day one, don't do it. That's what we tell our clients. We're paid to tell people the truth. We don't sell anything. We give you facts and math, and if they fit inside the parameters, you do the project, and if they don't, then it's a loser, and you don't do it. Myth number 5, the business owner or property manager must go it alone. Not true. Not true. Lots of consultants, lots of tax incentives out there. You're not out there doing this alone. You're just simply not. It's easy to reach out for experts like this seminar today, thanks to eMaint, and there are many, many, many subsidies that have to be explored, and that's, again, our job. Okay, the business case. Why you should care for this? Well, we're repeating ourselves a bit here, but I wanted to kind of drive that point home that this is really all about reducing O&M and all the benefits that flow from that, cash flow, profitability. The second paragraph, competitive advantage today is having cash when your competition does not. Boy, I'll tell you, that's worth the price of admission right there. If you can generate extra cash because you reduce your utilities, then that's free cash flow. That drops right to your bottom line. $1 you were sending to the utility company is still in your bank account. That's cash. That's competitive advantage. Green property operates, leases, and sells better. We've discussed this. There are some resources and footnotes I put at the end of this, some links. So I'm giving people all sorts of avenues to pursue at the end of this presentation where you don't have to speak with me necessarily. I'm going to show you how to go find out how to do this on your own if you want to. Future-proofing to me, and this is what this is really all about when you upgrade to 21st century hardware and software, it ensures survival. I just don't believe, in this final paragraph, that anyone's going to want to work at, lease space in, or buy a brown property. You wouldn't. You're going to be looking at whether they've upgraded the HVAC system, weatherization, building envelope, bad lighting, indoor air quality. I think that people who do not embrace this philosophy, call it green, sustainability, total quality control, whatever you want to call it, reducing O&M, this is really about future-proofing. It's about capital improvements that keep your property competitive in the 21st century. Next paragraph. I believe that every property manager and facility engineer that I've spoken with definitely has a vested interest in making sure their property runs smoothly. These are tough times out there. And if you're able to show management savings because of your initiative, that's a good thing. I had a property manager say that to me just the other day. She said, I'm under a lot of pressure. You can help me, and you can make me look like a hero. And it's exactly true. People who are agents of change, that's you. You bring profitable money-saving ideas to management. I've seen management sometimes reward people monetarily. They certainly recognize that that person was proactive and out front in helping them save money and run their facility better. That does not go unnoticed. This is, again, a culture of total quality control. That's what this whole presentation is about, TQC. Again, I keep referring to the second revolution of Deming. Everybody knows Deming. Okay, I read an article the other day that said that energy and water efficiency is the new normal. And again, you can find these articles, or you can call me or email me for them, but it really is true. You keep hearing about this in this economy, the new normal. Energy and water efficiency is. This is something that facility managers are going to need to go up the learning curve on. Happily for all of you folks is you don't have to learn it alone. There are consultants out there. Be a catalyst for change in your property. These are more incentives, but it's really all saying the same thing. You have a specific tactical issue or problem that needs fixing now. You'd like to reduce your bills. That starts with benchmarking and auditing. And there's this phrase you keep hearing in the marketplace, it's in the second bullet there, that you cannot manage what you cannot measure, and all of you know that. And so this starts with beginning to get into cost reduction, cost management. You want to reduce these bills permanently, not short-term. These are capital improvements. They'll improve your ROI and cash flow. It all fits together there at the end. Again, total quality control. When green becomes code, you heard it here first. Look around the country. It's increasingly becoming easy for municipalities to pass these ordinances. They're politically acceptable and they're money makers. So green is becoming code. In New York State, for example, you can't put a tar and pitch roof on anymore. Can't use tar. Can't use a petroleum-based product if you're going to re-roof. That's a law. And it's going on and on and on, and it's spreading. Social capital. It's not just economic. For a lot of companies, I know that Whole Foods in particular uses solar a lot on their facilities, not because solar is really doing a lot for their bottom line, but when you walk into Whole Foods, you see the solar panels and it fits. So maybe some of you out there are looking in your industry to also impress your clientele, to show them you're socially responsible. You see it everywhere now. CSR, corporate social responsibility. It pays dividends because your clients or your buyers, whoever you're catering to, notice. All right, take a look here at the checklist of all the areas that you could attack your building. And these are our skill sets and capabilities. When we look at a building, it is a holistic, synergistic approach. So when someone says, well, is this about solar? No, it's not about a product. This is about a systematic approach, top-down in your entire facility. Look at this, the second list. Again, these are all things you can keep doing along this genre of reducing costs, reducing O&M, increasing efficiencies. You'll notice the second bullet on this page is a CMS system. Again, you must have the software talking to the hardware. Where do you start? Well, it's like anything. You know, you eat the elephant one bite at a time. You start to categorize and prioritize, and you break the whole into parts. So some of these questions, again, when you ask for the PDF and we send it to you, you'll start to go down this checklist What's the most urgent? What's the biggest expense? What's your biggest day-to-day headache? What would simplify your life? What is management's #1 goal? And all of you right now are shaking your heads because some of you agree that you see something here on this page that you're like, yep, that's exactly what I was thinking. So you start by breaking the whole into parts. Understand that capital improvements are always strategic. This is not a short-term one-off. Sometimes people do one project, but this is much like home improvement. You really want to look at the long view. Again, cultural, systematically. These things do not get done in a day. It's not a 20-year process, but like home improvement, you do one project per year and you get there. So when we work with clients on facilities long-term, you start something today, you finance it, you get it paid off, and then you start the next project. Again, as I talked about future-proofing, I can't stress that enough that I don't believe that people are going to be competitive if they don't implement these efficiencies. In this economy especially, if revenues are not coming in, then it's even more imperative to clean up your balance sheet by reducing expenses. Start at the beginning. You're going to need to build a team, preferably C-level executives who have the authority and are invested in doing this. You want to obtain a full audit of your utility bills going back as far years. That's where we start. If you went and saw a doctor, the doctor would ask for your former records so that they can get a baseline on you. I don't know how people, especially a lot of the salespeople who are, I think, doing damage out there, that you can't properly implement anything unless first you have a full audit. You need to get a baseline. And then from that audit, looking back over the last several years, we can either do cost recovery, where we find errors in your billing, or if there are no errors, which is unlikely, we still have all the data we need to start the process going forward. So one of the ways you can vet people out there and disqualify consultants versus salespeople is if they want to sell you a product today, or if they want to start by saying first they need to gather data. That data will determine how your utility expenses break down. Once I see your bills for 5 years, I'll know how much you're spending on lighting, how much you're spending on water, I'll know your demand rate, I'll know your kilowatt rate, I'll know how many hours of facility usage each day, on and on. I mean, this is very mechanical. This is a very, very mathematical process. It's all about obtaining forensics, data. It's not about sales. And then again, at the very end, the last sentence there, there's so much outside help. There's so many people. And one of the best ways to vet these people, as I just mentioned, is whether or not they're product salespeople or whether or not they're consultants who work on a success fee, which basically means that they get paid for delivering savings. They don't get paid for showing up. All of you have these checklists already. You have HVAC, lighting, envelope, water. All of these are areas that we start to drill down into for savings. You'll notice I have people, process, and protocols and bad occupant habits. You'd be amazed at how much money you can save just through changing people's habits. We sit on the board of Dreaming Green in Miami, a nonprofit that works with Miami-Dade and Broward Public Schools. And Dreaming Green has saved the school systems here in South Florida literally hundreds of thousands of dollars over the last 5, 6, 7 years without one piece of hardware or software. It's all about teaching the occupants in that school how to be more energy and water efficient. Get a buy-in from C-level executives. I don't think these projects will go very far unless you have people who are really invested and who have the authority to back you up. Bottom line, efficiency and excellence becomes the culture and the mission, and that's what we're all about, efficiency and excellence. The utility bill audit will give us, again, baseline verifiable forensics. Where do you start a project? What we simply do, and it's really not rocket science, is we have very specific parameters. You need a high ROI, again, over double digit. You need a short payback. The world that my firm lives in is 2 to 4 years or less. And certain projects have less than 2 years, and if they're more than 4, don't do it. Wait. The technology will get better, cheaper, faster, smaller, better, cheaper, faster, smaller. It's the benefit of not being a salesperson or a product salesman. We'll tell you the truth. Don't do that. You want tax incentives, and you have to root around for those. And again, that's not necessarily the facility manager's domain. It's ours, working hand in glove with the C-level team and the CFO. That's how you start. You set parameters. And then you know that you won't lose money. You simply follow the money and the math. The good projects you do that make money, that have a verifiable savings each month in excess of the finance cost. And all the other projects you don't do. You wait. You put them in a filing cabinet, go revisit them next year. I guarantee you they will be cheaper. Everything is coming down the cost curve. All right, I'm trying to hit this little button here. I'm not getting my scroll bar. Hang on. There we go. Leverage the gains. The paid for with savings model. Again, projects that don't cost, they start you making money from day one, will allow you to finance the next project. So you save $1, verifiable, quantifiable, guaranteed on the first project. The finance cost is, let's say, 70 cents a month. You're clearing 30 cents a month on the arbitrage. You got positive cash flow. 2 years later, that project, the note's paid. It's done. Well, what's next? And you self-finance through these projects. So savings pay for each project successively. Stay at this process as a permanent mission statement. Again, excellence, operational efficiencies are not one-offs. They're not something you do today. It's a cultural part of the whole mission statement. We do something a little bit different here at the bottom than some other people in the industry. We finish the project with post-project occupant habits and training, which are critical. I've seen people put in energy management software, and nobody in the building knows how to run it. You want to have post-project marketing, because again, you want to let people know, whoever it is you're catering to in your industry, branding, goodwill, and social capital are huge. And some of the statistics out there in the polling around the world as to where people would rather go, a restaurant that they know is green versus one they know is not green, et cetera, those numbers are so tilted towards the public favoring the green companies that you might as well leverage the gains of what you've just done in your facility with branding, marketing, goodwill. Call the mayor down. Do a ribbon cutting. Let everybody know what you've done. It's also good kudos for you because you're the one, again, who started it. Who is responsible in your project for really project coordination of measurement, warranty, guarantee? That'll be somebody from the C-level team or yourself, and they'll work hand in glove with the consultant. Okay, an action plan. Understand that this is actually all about making money, not green costs. It's about competitive advantages. You can read a really good article on sustainability as part of a mission statement at that link there, that bit.ly link. It's about the Fortune 500 increasingly starting to embrace sustainability as, hey, this doesn't cost, it pays. Again, take a holistic and synergistic approach to your facility. Buildings are like bodies, so everything works together. So kind of like a general contractor on a project, you want to make sure that you do things systematically in order, not helter-skelter or randomly. Don't compartmentalize. Get a team that communicates so everyone really is working on the same page. You need that green team, the C-level executives, and somebody on that team is going to be the project coordinator who is responsible for dealing with the outside vendors. Reach out to experts. As I said, this is not, and I'm being respectful, I know you all know your job and your facilities, but this particular niche is not do-it-yourself or on-the-job training. It's not a steep learning curve, especially if you have somebody holding your hand. Just find good experts. Demand competitive bids. My firm has a strict business model as fiduciary consultants that we provide clients with at least 3 competitive bids. We don't sell products. You want people who don't sell to work on a success fee and give you competitive bids. You want performance contracts where somebody guarantees the savings, whatever they may be, and they're out there. And these are ways you disqualify people who say, no, we don't do that, that we don't give competitive bids. No, we only do it. Those are the people you quickly want to say thank you, goodbye, and you keep looking. If you get performance contracts and competitive bids and you stick to a strict formula of the math we've been discussing today and some of the parameters for choosing projects and discarding projects, you'll always end up with a profitable project because you boxed it in and measured it a priori before you started. Same thing as I said there, demand quantifiable, measurable, and verifiable data. And all of it is possible. I mean, you're all facility managers, you know that. Many of you are engineers. It's not really that hard to measure the math on a project before you start and to know the outcome. At the very bottom there, I simply talk about the fact that this is not a one-off. It's not something you're going to check off your box and get done this week. If you want long-term savings and long-term profitability and a long-term future-proofed property, it's a long-term project. So as I said, think of it as home improvement. Here's your action checklist. Data logging, hardware and software interfacing. We assist with post-project warranties and guarantees. You want these things. You need post-project occupant habits and training. If people can offer you these things, great. If they can't, move on because they don't know what they're doing or you're working with somebody who's just selling something. Again, I talk about committing. I think this is a macro approach and a C-level approach. It has to be where management's supporting the facility manager and says, yes, let's go for it. Or management has asked you to come on this call today to investigate this. You'll see there I talk about, again, the Deming model. This is what we're referring to. And you know Deming's site is deming.org. TQC, total quality control or efficiencies are the drivers for productivity and profitability. This is what we're talking about. It's about squeezing the most from your property and improving asset yield. If you're an asset manager, if you run properties as an asset manager, you understand asset yield. It's net operating income. And at the end of the day, that's what we're talking about. Generating more cash flow from a better run property. Again, green about using less, producing more. Reach out to experts to conduct utility bill audit. This is where you start. If I didn't see the sun come up tomorrow, don't start by buying a product. Don't start anywhere except first you need to get a baseline. Imagine going to a doctor and the doctor says, well, I'm going to start to prescribe stuff. I don't need to see your old records. You'd be like, what? I can't start any property until first I see your data, your forensics. And one of the things we look at is could we recover some old mistakes, wrong tariff rates. It's about an 80% chance that your bills, literally, about an 80% chance your bills have mistakes. So first we find those mistakes, we clean them up, we get you some free cash flow from cost recovery, and then you go forward. As I said here in point number 2, the CFO is responsible for the tax savings component. I gave you a very small checklist there of free and easy resources to assist you with starting an action plan. I don't want you to think it's dependent upon calling me or this is about me. It isn't. You could simply right now there in point number 1, take your local city, okay, Miami, Florida, and punch in the words energy and water audit, utility audit, sustainability consultant, energy and water efficiency, reduce water usage, anything. And you'll get names. And then you start the interview process. Number 2, you can ask your CPA about the deductions in IRS Code Section 179D, which are a lot of the tax deductions for energy. Ask your CFO about cost segregation. They understand what that is. And the rest of this page is really things you can specifically do tomorrow at your desk to start the ball rolling. You can also call me, point number 8. These are all links that, as Rona said, she didn't want this presentation being dependent upon only talking to Fraser Allport. So if you look at even 1 or 2 of these links, it'll start to take you down the road to learning more and more about how to get things done and who to call. By the way, those first 5 links, the top left, are the most important ones, just so you know. So if you looked at nothing else, look at the first 5, and you'll be on your way to finding outside experts. I say it again. I don't know where else anybody could start. It's one of the ways I know the professionals versus the unprofessionals. If somebody comes into your property and says, I want to sell you solar or lighting or whatever. No. First you want the doctor, before they do surgery, to look at all your records. It's just common sense. These audits are free. These auditors work on a success fee. They will take a percentage of the savings they find, which is exactly what you want. Nobody writes a check up front. You say to somebody, great, go find me $1 of savings and you get X% of it. That's a success fee model. That's a model that, again, is results-based. They only get paid for finding you savings. Demand forensics, demand results. Be proactive. No one's going to start this process except you. And good for you for doing this on this call today. I give you all credit, and I mean that very sincerely, because you're actually tip of the spear. In the long view, green is very incipient. It'll dominate the 21st century. If you're doing this now, you're ahead of the curve before, within, let's say, 3 to 5 years, green is increasingly code. And again, it's easy for municipalities to pass it politically, and they love it. They're making money. from enforcing new rules and regs. So down the road, if the local utility or the local municipality find that your facility is, let's say, running at 80% efficiency, and they can tell from your demand rate, they can tell from your usage, then they'll put surcharges. And you know that's true because in the state of Florida already, Florida Power and Light says if you're not operating at a power factor of at least 85%, we have the right to charge you more per kilowatt. All of this is coming at us. So again, be green before green becomes code. I take the long view on this. I know some people don't own their property. Some people will be there 2 or 3 years, and that's fine. But if you are going to be in that facility long term, or you want to sell it long term, then one of the ways to look at this is, okay, I'll do 10% a year. I'll do some project each year for the next 10 years. I'll consistently, continually upgrade my property so it leases better, sells better, runs better. And at the end of the day, I've either got a great property I keep or I've got a property I can sell. As I said to Rona earlier today, if someone says to me, well, I'm only here for 2 more years, well, that's fine. You'll do things on a smaller scale, but doing nothing is not a good idea. Doing nothing to any property is not going to benefit anybody. That's me. That's all of my contact info. So I think I've motored through this. Again, I apologize for doing it quickly. I'd rather just get to Q&A because then I can address people's specific concerns.